All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. We have an Erroll Spence Jr. sighting in Vegas, and he gives his opinion on and predicts the winner of Terence Crawford versus Shawn Porter, which is coming up in a couple weeks. Let's talk about what he had to say in this video. Welcome back to the channel. It is obviously fight week for Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant, but in this particular video, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about what I think is one of the biggest, if not the biggest fight in boxing that may be down the line, and that is the one for undisputed champion at 147 pounds. Ellie Sethback of ES News, shout out to Ellie Sethback of ES News, caught up with Errol Spence Jr. in Vegas ahead of the fight between Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant, PBC card. So you know he probably got free tickets. So man, those tickets were crazy expensive. Wanted to get into that fight last minute. Called my connect on those, and it was like, man, like I think nosebleed seats were like $700. Lower bowl tickets were like $1,500. So just ridiculously expensive. So needless to say, I didn't get up in there. I got to watch my pennies a little bit more closely than that. But Errol in there gets interviewed in the casino by ES News and is asked who he thinks is going to win the fight between Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant. Says to that question, he says that his heart is with Caleb Plant and he wants Caleb Plant to win, but his mind says, that's going to be a really tough deal with Canelo Alvarez. But he's going with Plant. I like that, man. I'm starting to get a little bit more hip to that, man. Cats are saying, yeah, I'm going with Plant. That don't mean they think that he's going to win. Anyway, the more important question was, when are you coming back, Errol? And who do you think the winner is going to be between Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter? He talks about that, and he says that he believes that Terence Crawford is going to beat Shawn Porter in that fight. Doesn't give a lot of details as to why he believes that, but I will tell you, man, that I do appreciate the honest answer out of Errol Spence. That is something, because that's not something that some people will do. If you've not noticed, one of the trends in boxing is if you have a rival and there's a guy that you beat and that your rival is going to fight the guy that you beat, a lot of guys will predict that your rival will lose to the guy that you lost to. And I think that they do that stuff just pretty much to make themselves look better in the press and to tear down their opponent. Terence Crawford didn't do that. He gave a straight up honest answer to it and said he believed that Terence Crawford was going to win. Now, that's not what Teofimo Lopez, and the example that I'm thinking of when I said that is what Teofimo Lopez said the other day about Gervonta Tank Davis and Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson, and pretty much threw those guys all under the bus and said that he believed they all lose to the guy that he beat, Vasily Lomachenko. Shakur Stevens got a little hot about it. I haven't heard a reaction from anybody else, but it's just kind of that boilerplate, just boilerplate hatred, in my opinion, out of Teofimo Lopez. If Teofimo Lopez can beat Vasily Lomachenko, those other young guys who all bring different things to the table than he does, got a shot at Lomachenko as well. But I appreciate the honesty in Errol Spence Jr. talking about the Terence Crawford Shawn Porter fight. In my opinion, and I'm gonna say this all the way to the fight, Terence Crawford, I believe that Terence Crawford is going to win the fight with Shawn Porter, but it is not going to be an easy fight for Terence Crawford. Or put it this way, if it is an easy fight for Terence Crawford, I'm going to be very, very surprised, very, very impressed, and it will just solidify my opinion that I have that Terence Crawford is pound for pound the best fighter in boxing. I've been saying that ever since this fight with Shawn Porter and Terence Crawford was made. I'm kind of backing off. I backed off a little bit on criticizing Terence Crawford because a lot of the criticism I had for Terence Crawford was just the fact that he was acting like he didn't want to fight these other top guys in welterweight, and I wasn't really buying his story that that, everybody was ducking him, because there's just no evidence for, to support that everybody was ducking him, especially when you listen to, what he says and even the way that this Shawn Porter came about. Shawn Porter said that he wanted to fight Terence Crawford, and clearly Shawn Porter wants to fight Terence Crawford, because if he didn't want to fight Terence Crawford, he wouldn't have to take the fight. There's no penalty for Shawn Porter not fighting Terence Crawford if he didn't want to fight Terence Crawford. The worst thing that's going to happen to him is going to get dropped from the WBO rankings. And if he gets dropped by the WBO rankings, so what? He's ranked in the other sanctioning bodies. It's not like he's going to lose a belt or anything. Terence Crawford, on the other hand, if he didn't accept the fight, would presumably have lost his WBO belt for not doing it. So he got put in a situation where he was forced to fight Shawn Porter. So, I had a lot of God, man, I'm stumbling over my tongue today. I just had a lot of doubt in my mind as to, what Terence Crawford was willing to do vis-a-vis these other guys in that division. But now that fight is actually taking place, I don't think that it's important to talk about what's in Terence Crawford's mind and whether or not he wanted to fight Shawn Porter or not, or whether he's forced to fight Shawn Porter, because presumably, evidently, he was forced to fight. He actually was forced to fight Shawn Porter. The only thing that really matters is what actually happens in the fight. And Shawn Porter's he's no easy task. So if he's able to pull that off, for me, he's the best fighter in boxing, pound for pound. However, that does not mean that he's going to be the best welterweight, that he's going to beat everybody in the welterweight division. Specifically, the guys that I think will give him problems and may be able to beat him is two guys. One is for me, obviously, is Errol Spence Jr., the guy that owns that we're talking about, the guy that owns the IBF belt and the WBC belt. For me, that is the top. That's the number one welterweight, because that is the guy that has a style. Number one, he's got a style that is very, very difficult to beat, because it's a pressure style. And, that's that old saying that pressure bust pipes. And look, man, you can have a complicated system of pipes, right? And that's what you call it. Your pipe is your water filtration system or whatever, your water system in your house. It can be as intricate, go into every room that you needed to go into room. The water is flowing, perfectly, all of that good old stuff. However, if for some reason there's a tremendous amount of pressure that starts pumping through those pipes, at a certain point in time, that pressure is going to bust them pipes. And that's what Errol Spence Jr. brings to the table. I'm really happy to hear him say that he's going to be back, that he's looking to get back, and that, he's still on the search for Undisputed, because that's the one thing he said in the interview that really does connect to the Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter fight, is that he's looking for Undisputed. And that WBO belt is over there. So if he's looking for Undisputed, then he's definitely looking for a fight with the guy that has those belts. He also talked about whether or not he was going to be fighting Yordenis Ugas. He said, well, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. The most likely answer to that is no, because the WBA is clearly prioritized. Clearly, Gary Shaw, I think, had something to do with this, was clearly prioritizing their, cleaning up their belts to having an undisputed champion. So you have Ugas having to fight at least 2 fights before they're available to have a fight for Undisputed. So more than likely, if Errol Spence Jr. is on that route, he's going to be able to, the WBO belt will be available before the WBA belt is, because this WBO fight between Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter is a mandatory fight. The winner after that gets a voluntary. If it's Shawn Porter, you can expect him to go right back into it. If it's Terence Crawford, I don't know if you can expect him to go right back into it, because I don't know what Terence Crawford is thinking as far as making that fight. And there's all those conversations that are going on about the 50-50 split or whatever. But anyway, just happy to see Errol Spence Jr. saying he's back and that he's coming. And I agree with his prediction with Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter, but man, that's going to be a really, really good fight. Anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.